What's up, everybody? Welcome back to a brand new episode of WB Content. And last night, Dark Side of the Ring. I mean, wow. Now, I have seen footage on women's wrestling. I have seen docu-series episodes about women's wrestlers like AJ Lee, Becky Lynch, the Bella Twins, Rhea Ripley, Stephanie McMahon, like all the greats, all the legends, all the Hall of Famers. But seeing last night's episode, Missy Hyatt, the first women's, I think, everything in wrestling. I mean, the first valet, the first women's announcer, the first everything from the 80s and the 90s. I mean, everything she did was like a power move for the women's, for everything in women in wrestling. I mean, I thought Fabulous Moolah episode was crazy, and her and them talking about her legacy and the controversy she had with the wrestlers and what she did in the wrestling business. Her being the first women's Hall of Famer, like all of that. But Missy Haya, oh my God, different story, different angle, different everything, and how she was brought up in the wrestling business, from being a interviewer for the WWF to being the the announcer for WCW to her being Sandman's girlfriend in ECW and all the crap she went through, the highs, the lows, all of that. She persevered. She came out on the other side, and she is happy. She's healthy. She's still beautiful to this day, and she has an amazing boyfriend by her side through thick and thin. Like, what more could you ask for? The start of the episode, I was completely surprised. Like, how she started was, at first she wanted to be a soap actor. Now, it was during the 80s. Everybody was into soap operas. You had Days of Our Lives, you had General Hospital, you had the Wonderful Life for Wonderful, like the Wonderful Lives, or something in that nature of life and wonderful and family. But when she saw wrestling with her dad, she looked at it as soap opera. Now, at first, when I first watched wrestling, I didn't think it was soap opera. I thought it was just fighting. But then the more I watched it, and even my mom said it. My mom told me this is soap opera. Like, people talking, people betraying one another. People cheating on their girlfriends, people being valets. Like, it's all soap opera in that nature. And when Missy Hayat, she saw it for soap opera, but for men, that's how she got into it. So at first, she was just working odd jobs to make ends meet. Next thing you know, she meets, at the time, a start off wrestler, Jake the Snake Roberts. Now, at the time, they were together and they were dating. So, like, she goes into like, I want to be like that. I want to be like Sunny from WCCW when she's a valet for the guys, and he's like, okay, yeah, let me see if I can send you some pictures to the promoters, and we'll see what we get from there. Out of nowhere, she gets the call and she becomes a valet. But not just a normal valet. She becomes like Madonna, the pretty blonde hair, the makeup, the clothes, the jewelry, the famous handbag whacked to the head with her enemies. Like, she created crazy valet drama in the 80s when the promotion was still separate. You had GCW, you had WCCW, you had AWA, like all the promoters trying to find their footing in certain territories in the early 80s. By the mid 80s, WCCW, she was on top of her game. She even had a mud pit match on the grandest stage in WCCW Parade of Champions, and she killed it. Like, she drew in the crowd. Yes, you had the Von Erichs, you had the Fabulous Freebirds, you had Gino Hernandez, you had Chris Adams, all the great legends like that. But Missy Haya, oh my God, for the women, mud pit match, first one ever in wrestling history. Now that is how you make history and draw the card up for a promotion. Later on, of course, WCCW, she ended that. Now she's on to the next phase of her career, trying to get to the WWF. Miss McMahon, she saw what she did. She gave her the call, and thus her being like, I wouldn't necessarily announce her. She was more like, backstage interviewer, like with Piper's Pit, Roddy Piper. He had his, like, his interviewer thing. He would talk to the wrestlers, beat the crap out of them. But then that was slowly disappearing, because after everything he did, he decided to go make movies, which Makes sense, you're a wrestler, you want to expand your horizon and maybe do movies or open up a restaurant, open up a bar or something. But for Missy, after Piper Pitt was gone, they made um Missy's Manor. But it didn't necessarily become a big hit because if anybody knows or if anybody remembers or if anybody who was working at the WWF at the time, Vince McMahon, he was making good money. He was drawing power for all the great wrestlers. As for Missy, he thought that if she can go to bed with him, he can make her more money. Well, Missy stood her ground. She said no. And what happens when you tell a promoter no? They fire her. So Vince McMahon, he cut the project short for Missy's Manor. Next thing you know, she wanted to be an announcer for the WWF, but then that was a bad idea or something because for the women in the wrestling business, it's always a man's business. You got the male wrestlers, you got the promoters. If the promoter's male, the producers are male, the cameraman's even a male. And for Missy, she was trying to break boundaries. She wanted to be a part of the wrestling business in her own way. Vince McMahon, he didn't like it, so she quit. Then, of course, this is way before the Monday Night Wars. WCW was starting their own promotion. Dusty Rhodes, he saw what she was capable of, thus her being in WCW. And then, of course, she was the announcer for the matches. She was cutting great promos with some of the wrestlers. Heck, she even walked with the Steiner brothers. The Steiner brothers, she would walk to the ring with them like it was everything she asked for and more. I mean, she was on cover of wrestling magazines. She was the top hotline for WCW, and she had her own wrestling calendar as an announcer. Oh my god. She was making billions and billions of dollars. Or so she thought. If you're in the wrestling business, then you can draw up the best matches. You can be on the main event card for every single match you're at. You can have the biggest heel or the biggest baby face, or better yet, the biggest rivalry in wrestling history, and you make money off of that. But if you're a promoter and the producer and the creative writing of the show, you have to get a pay cut. For Missy, all she had to make from the calendars to the the segments that she pulled to her being on covers of wrestling magazines, the hottest hotline in WCW, all she got was a lousy maybe 15 to 20 bucks. Meanwhile, you got the owner of the company and the producers and the television guys, they're making maybe hundreds and thousands of dollars off of this, but while she is putting in the work. As time went on, instead of her being an announcer, she was now a valet for the Nasty Boys. Now, if anybody remembers, I want to say this was the Fall Brawl or something. The match happens between the Nasty Boys and I think another team. I forgot what the name was. Next thing you know, she tries to take the wrestler off of one of her valet people, the Nasty Boys, and then the craziest thing happened was her boob popping out of her outfit. Now she tried to cover it up. She really did. She tried to cover it up, make sure everything was normal, but then the cameraman got it. Then the photographers and everybody who was there saw it. The next day, she goes to work. She looks at the bulletin board, and there's the picture of her boob popping out, and she was not happy about it. She grabbed that picture, she tore it to shreds. She went to Eric Bischoff's office saying, "This is unacceptable. This is harassment. I will not allow this." And she went over his head and went to, of course, the owners of the company. Well, sadly, that did not work in her favor because of her ex-boyfriend who was on the Wonder Years. He and Eric Bischoff had a good friendship. So instead of them taking her side and saying, "You know what, yeah, you're right, this is not acceptable, we're gonna fix this," Eric Bischoff fires her instead. And the crazy thing is that They have an audio recording of an interview that he had back in 2024, and he stated that I didn't fire her because of she went over my head to the owners of the company, stating how, like, I didn't know any about the boob popping out situation. I fired her because she was jealous because all the other girls were getting more heat. She was jealous because the girls were younger. They were giving out more TV time than her. I heard that, and I saw like the pictures and the videos and the footage of it, and I'm like, are you crazy? You're really gonna say that when you know for a fact you fired her because of what she was gonna or what she was gonna pull off when she was gonna go on the news or something and talk about her boob popping out. When she got fired, she went and sued WCW. Now she got money. I think she got a settlement or something, but she only had maybe $50,000 or something, because she had to pay the attorney fees and the lawyers and all that crap plus taxes. So basically, She didn't make a lot of money like she thought she was going to do with a sue, but it didn't matter. Years went on. She was working odd jobs again. She moved to New York. That's where she met Paul Heyman. Now, if anybody remembers, Paul Heyman, the 90s, ECW, the hardcore grunge wrestling promotion that you wanted to see, where you wanted to see, guys getting hit with baseball bats and chains and barbed wires, falling 10 feet to land on like 10 or 20 chairs or 10 or 20 tables. With Missy Hyatt, she was a downright grunge girl working with Sandman. Now, she was making some good money, but she was just all over the place. And she's also said in the interview how she was diagnosed with ADHD, she was diagnosed with bipolar, and then she was taking a lot of drugs left and right. And she named every drug she tried, and I heard it, and I'm like, what? You tried all this, and you're still here? Like, that's wow, that is insane. She went through so much in her life that after ECW, she decides to make a wrestling adult film picture website or whatever. And she did kind of make some money, but it just wasn't enough. And it was probably the late 90s. The internet was popping with a bunch of computers and downloading the pictures and videos and stuff. Like, everybody got it for free, so you couldn't pay for it. For Missy, that was one of her downward spirals. That it was so bad, she almost took her life. Thankfully, she didn't. After, she called one of her friends and told her what she was going to do, and that was like a wake up call for her. She got herself right. She went to a couple psychiatrists and one who really helped her throughout her own mess. She got clean. She got sober. Now she has a happy life. And her boyfriend, fun fact about this guy, he was actually a fan of hers when he was a teenager. And he even said it. He said that that was his idol growing up. He loved her. He loved seeing her in the ring. He had pictures of her. He had a picture of her in her locker in high school. Now I'm like, and you're with her now. Like, you are now with your idol you saw growing up. Like, that's wild. Like, that's pretty crazy. Cool also because, like, you're dating your icon, which is pretty awesome. For Missy, she still keeps in touch with some of the wrestlers that she worked with. She still keeps in touch with her close friend after 40 years, and she did an amazing job. From her being a valet to a ring announcer to being in the two biggest promotions, her being in the grunge promotion at VCW, her like going through so much of what she went through, like, that shows you true perseverance and shows you that no matter how many times you get knocked down, you can pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and you move on. And that's exactly what she did. She picked herself back up, and what's crazy is that people are still talking about her. Like people who remember her from the territory years, people who remember her from the WCW years, like they remember her as the crazy, blonde, awesome girl who would whack people with a Gucci purse. Now, that's pretty awesome. I've seen a couple of Dark Side Arena episodes, and some episodes are about a wrestler who was no longer here, who passed away due to either, a um, drugs and alcohol, or commit suicide, or they just died out of old age or something. But the more I look at it, I look at it as like, yes, it's sad that they're no longer here, but their legacy lives on. As for Missy, happy and healthy, she still gets to tell her story to this day. And seeing that episode, I've come to realize that, yeah, of course, not being a valet, you think it's not all fine and glamorous, but the way she pulled it off in the 80s and the 90s, it just shows you that no matter who you are, you can still make it big in the wrestling business. Whether you're a wrestler or you're a ring announcer, you're a valet, it doesn't matter. You're part of something and you're making history off of it. And she did that from the territories to two big companies to a grunge promotion. Like she went through all of that and came out on the other side an amazing woman. So Dark Side of the Ring, Missy Hyatt episode, I was impressed. I was shocked, and I was definitely surprised to see how things turned out. Now, next week, there's going to be another wrestler we're going to talk about named Zach Gowen or Joen, something like that, where he wrestled with one leg. I'm actually excited to see how that's going to turn out. Like, I want to know everything. I want to know how he managed to get into the wrestling business with one leg. I want to know if he wrestled in any of the big promotions. I want to know if he wrestled and he was a champion. Like, I want to know his whole story, and I'm excited to see the footage of how he wrestled with one leg. Not to mention that he's wrestling with professionals, so that's going to be pretty cool to see on Dark Side of the Ring next week. Um, Friday, of course, we got SmackDown. We have a couple, I think 2 maybe 3 weeks until Sunday Night Main Event coming up. We got a lot of drama ahead of us. Family turning on family, friends becoming allies, allies becoming friends. Allies becoming enemies. Like, it's just gonna be crazy. But I'm excited to see what's gonna happen later on, especially for Triple Mania for Dominic and El Grande Americano for the AAA Mega Championship. That's all I have for today, guys. Hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll talk to you guys soon.